Good morning. I am Tina Alexander, and this is Olivia Batanian. And we are members here of this congregation and your worship associates today. On behalf of Reverend Dave Dunn, intern minister Liz Martin, UUMAN member and today's speaker, Dirk Bender, Director of Religious Exploration, Lexi T. Brown, our music director, Alex Peach, and the greeters and technical team that are making today's live stream possible. I would like to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Metro Atlanta North Congregation, which we lovingly call UUMAN.
Liberal faith community with the mission to nurture our spirit, strive for justice, and transform the world. No matter who you are, who you love, or where you are on your spiritual journey, all are welcome here.
Welcome to all that are joining us remotely. For any visitors who are here with us for the first time and you feel comfortable doing so, would you please stand and tell us your name and where you're from so that we can get to know you better? Are there any visitors on my left? Welcome, welcome. Anybody else on my left? How about on my right? Hey, welcome, welcome. Anyone else? Okay. And now for our announcements. Are you new to UUMAN and want to know more about us? If so, please attend the UNU 102 information session, which will be offered during second hour today. The bus to Montgomery for our trip to the Legacy Museum on January 18th is halfway full. Reserve your seats today using the QR code in the order of worship. Please contact Elizabeth Rohan with any questions. Our twice yearly congregational meeting and potluck will take place next Sunday. The potluck starts at 11 a.m. and the meeting is at 12 noon. Childcare will be available. Also during next Sunday's service, we will have our annual bread communion. Please feel free to bring some bread, cookies, or other baked goods that have special significance in your life. You will be given the opportunity to share the story of your baked good and its importance to you. You'll get extra credit if you bring some pre-cut sample size pieces for sharing. Please consult your printed order of worship to see our second hour adult enrichment offerings for today.
And now let us greet one another in the hand or elbow of friendship.
was a good start, dropping the stuff on the podium. Howdy, everybody. How you doing? This call to worship is from Dave Davies, who pronounces his last name that way. His brother pronounces it Davis. Where are you going? I don't mind. I've killed my world and I've killed my time. So where do I go? What will I see? I see many people coming after me. So where are you going to? I don't mind. If I live too long, I'm afraid I'll die. So I will follow you wherever you go, if your offered hand is still open to me. Strangers on this road we are on, but we are not two, we are one.
And now let us light our chalice together. Our chalice lighting today is entitled Music Arises by Arlen Goff. Music arises from depths unknown, often without words, but never without meaning. And spirit rises from deep within me, seducing my body to join the song. First a tremor in the soul, then tapping of toes. Breath aligns with breath, heart beats in syncopation, and a stuttering buzz in my throat becomes a hum. Breath with breath, beat with beat, and music and spirit arise together. Wed in faith and hope and love and power, a song is born, bursting from my lips in sweet, sonorous symphony. A melody joining with other souls, perhaps in tune, perhaps not, but a song still, arising from deep within and from community. Spirit moves, soul births song, and hope fills life. And I am not alone. How can I keep from singing? And now, as you are able, would you please stand and sing our opening hymn, number 1018, in the softback hymnal. Come and go with me.
Would like to come forward? We'll have a story. Good morning, guys. There's a picture that's going around that's really just for the adults, but I want to tell you a story about friends of mine and friends of yours that are disappearing. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about our feathered friends, our birds. So, you know, as the weather gets colder and the plants die down, which provide a lot of food and nourishment for the birds disappear. And so the question becomes, where do they go? Yes. They fly south. This kid knows a whole lot more than the rest of the world knew a few years ago. But now some of the birds that have disappeared have left the planet, and they will not be back. But a lot of the birds, they've gotten really smart over time, and they know what they have to do to survive. So they travel south. They travel south because it's warmer there, but primarily because that's where they can eat. That's where there's food for them, because there's not really food here. Now, an interesting thing about that is they have to cross boundaries. Do you know what a boundary is? A boundary is just an imaginary line. The birds don't pay any attention to our boundaries. You know, there's a boundary between the U.S. and Mexico, and between Mexico and Guatemala. And those boundaries can be problems for people that are trying to go where they can eat. But the birds don't pay any attention to that. They just fly on to where they're going. You could say, in a sense, that the animals have figured out things that we haven't. They may be smarter than us in a whole lot of ways. For a long time, we did not know where the birds went. There were a lot of theories about where the birds went. Some people thought that maybe they buried in the mud like some other animals do and hibernated. Some people thought they went to the moon. Yeah. But a couple of 100 years ago, they got a clue. A rich guy in Germany shot a white stork. Now, why anybody would want to shoot a white stork is beyond me, but he did. But the strange thing, that stork had already been injured by a spear. That bird, even though he could still fly, he was carrying an African spear in his body. And so for the first time, they began to understand that these birds could fly great distances, and this particular bird had come from Africa. Now today, you know, we can track the birds pretty easily because we have new technologies. We have satellites and we have GPS. Now there's one bird in particular that's a real hero. He's an Olympian bird, I guess you'd say. I'll show you a picture of him. He's called a bar-tailed godwit. Now he's a shorebird, so we don't see him around here, but this bird is so amazing. He flies every year from Alaska to New Zealand. That's 7,000 miles. Can you imagine driving all the way across the United States and then turning around and going back again and then starting again without any food, without any water, and you doing all the flying, not the airplane? That's what this guy does. Now, birds are our friends. They're beautiful, and they're amazing. I mean, can you imagine building a house without any hands and then singing about it? That's what the birds do. Not only that, but they eat bugs, and they eat mosquitoes. You know, hummingbirds love mosquitoes. They eat about 2,000 insects a day. You know, everybody thought they just ate sugar water. Well, that is not the truth of the matter. But we're not really the friends of birds, not always. About 125 years ago, it became very fashionable for women to wear feathers in their hats. Now, the fact that it was fashionable, a lot of women started doing that, and a lot of people started making hats with feathers. So what do you think that did to the bird population? Because somebody had, yes. They did. They used feathers from birds, from real birds, and so that meant somebody was out there shooting those birds and bringing those feathers to the people that were making hats. And so, in a while, some of our birds became extinct, and other species were diminished seriously. I'll show you a picture. This is one of the women with feathers in her hat. Now, this woman, she didn't just settle for feathers in her hat. She had to have the whole bird. Can you imagine walking around with a dead bird on your head? You want to take a look at this, guys? Now, these feathers became so valuable, they were actually worth twice the value of gold in that time. But I want to show you a picture of my favorite bird. Even though I've never seen this bird, nor have you. This bird is called the passenger pigeon. Isn't it beautiful? And at one time, sorry, it's actually kind of emotional to talk about it. But at one time, this was the most abundant bird in the world. There were said to be 3 to 5 billion of these birds. Audubon, John James Audubon, he's the guy that is the most famous painter of bird pictures in the world. He said one day he saw a cloud of passenger pigeons that was a mile wide and that for 3 days blocked the sun. Children were screaming, horses were bolting, people were even falling down on their knees and praying because they thought it was the end of the world. But by 1914, all of these pigeons were gone. The last one died in a zoo in Cincinnati, a female pigeon named Martha. But we can help. We can help solve the problem of the disappearing of birds. The first thing we have to do is we have to love them. The next thing is we can help provide them with what they need, which is the same thing we need: food and water and shelter and clean air. We don't think about that affecting the birds, but our polluted air does. But But the thing that they need most, you know, we have bird feeders, and this time of year they're very helpful. But what do birds need in the spring? What are birds doing in the spring? Yes. They're coming back here, and then what do they do? What? Well, they eat. Yeah, they got to eat. What else do they do? What? Lay eggs? Is that what you said? Lay eggs and raise young. Now, they have to have soft food when they're young. To have soft food when they're young. And baby birds can't eat seeds, so the stuff you put in your bird feeder is not going to help them. They need caterpillars. They need things that grow on native plants. So that's why we keep talking about native plants, because everything is connected. And in order to, you know, support the bird life around us, those native plants are very, very important. If you have a cat, anybody in here have a cat? If your cat runs outside, just be aware that those cats are catching birds. And one thing you can do is put a bell on that bird's collar, or that cat's collar, that will help give a warning to the birds. Cats are not endangered, by the way. We got plenty, and we got plenty of dogs, but our birds really are. So I taught school for a long time, and I'm not a big believer in homework. Do you guys like homework? No. You like it a little bit? Well, it's okay to like it a little bit. And I think a little bit of it is good, but I think sometimes the adults need homework. And here is your homework assignment, adults. I want you to continue this story because it's an important story, and it's a bigger story than I could ever tell, certainly in a short period of time. Now, to help kind of end our conversation, there's a song that I like a lot, and I think you probably do too, and I don't sing very well, so I'd like you to help me out here. So, rise up in the morning and smile at the morning sun. 3 little birds at my doorstep, singing sweet songs, melodies, pure and true, saying, "This is my message to you. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be all right. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be all right." One more time, everybody. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be all right if we all do our part. The birds actually talk. That's an interesting question. You know, some parrots do. I don't know, you know, they definitely have their own language, and they communicate among themselves, and that's about as far as I can go with it. Thank you, guys.
At this point in our service, we share our joys with each other to magnify them, and our sorrows to divide the weight of their pain. If you are so moved, please feel free to come forward State your name and drop a pebble in the bowl and express a joy or sorrow that you may have. For those of you attending via our live stream, you may have a joy or sorrow that you would like to share this morning. Please type it in the chat.
Good morning. My name is Martina Austin, and I'm a member of this congregation. A little over 3 months ago, I told you that my son's son had been delivered prematurely due to his mom having preeclampsia. And I am thrilled to report that last night he was able to go home from the hospital. Thank you. At 8.5 pounds. He still doesn't take, he keeps falling asleep before he finishes his bottle. So he has a port in his stomach so they can feed him still, but they can do it from home now, which is just miraculous. So thank you very much.
Hey, my name is Rachel Osborne. I'm from North Carolina, and as you guys may have seen on the news, ICE and Border Patrol are headed to Charlotte now from Chicago. And if you're familiar with Charlotte at all, you know that it can be a very segregated city. So I have a pebble of concern for those communities there. And I guess I have a pebble of joy for the Starbucks workers that are on strike starting last week. So they are on strike in the Metro Atlanta area. Not every store in Metro Atlanta is a unionized store, but the workers are requesting that we do not buy from Starbucks while they are on strike for better wages and against Starbucks' past history of union busting.
Well, the government shutdown ended, so that is a joy in that, you know, my husband got a paycheck. Hallelujah. So we'll put that one in. But I'm angry. I'm still really, really angry about the people that had to go hungry and the people who are going to be affected come January with the health insurance, which I think is a lot of people. So that's my sorrow.
Hi, I'm Erin Wagoner. I'm a regular visitor, and I would like to express my joy that I'm in the right place because the children's message was about birds and native plants. My joy is I'm a single mom. I have 3 kids. I was in a horrible situation 6 years ago, super broke. My joy, and I've been trying to make my peace in a house that I just could not make my peace in. My joy is I finally bought a new house for me last week. That is my place, and I love native plants. We need native plants because they are what our caterpillars eat. When you pick a non-native plant, you're basically putting a plastic plant in your garden because our caterpillars cannot eat those and lay their eggs. And one nest of chickadees needs 6,000 caterpillars in the spring. So that's the scope of why these native plants are so important. And my new house is 2 acres, and it was owned by one of the top native plant experts in Georgia. If you know Ellen Honeycutt, I bought Ellen Honeycutt's house. I have Ellen Honeycutt's plants. So I have 2 acres filled with only native plants and no invasives. So I'm so happy for that milestone in my life.
I am Richard Bomba, and my greatest joy, of course, is singing in this choir and learning from Alex Peach every Wednesday, because you would not believe how much he knows and how good he is, and how he's pushed me into singing with other groups. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to plug this next week because it'll be too late, so I'm going to plug it now. which is next Thursday, the 20th. Alex and several of our choir members are going to be performing with the 21st Annual Interfaith Thanksgiving Celebration concert at Kol Emeth Temple in Marietta at 7 o'clock. You have to register at kolemeth.net Interfaith Thanksgiving. And if you can attend, you would really, really enjoy that because the choir is huge. It's a combination of singers from many, many different denominations, churches, throughout the whole North Metro area especially. You would really love it. They're doing We Rise Big House, which is the jazz number, and A Million Dreams from The Greatest Showman. And I have a little solo. Thank you.
All right, so we got news from North Carolina. We're going to get news from Tennessee. That's also a pebble of concern. So I'm from Tennessee, originally from Memphis, Tennessee, and there are libraries in Tennessee that they're emergency closing to remove books, and a lot of those books that are being reviewed are for gender identity, for just LGBTQ people, among other groups. So something that y'all can do in our area to help prevent that from happening is being involved in your local library, paying attention to the board meeting, the library board meeting notes, contacting them to see how you can get involved, because we have a bunch of different groups in all states that are fighting to remove people's identities, and it's crushing. It's crushing for me, and it's crushing for the people that are coming up in new generations. So please don't let that happen. Please get involved with your local libraries and make sure that you are aware of things that are happening in those board meetings, seeing if any book bans are happening. That would be a really easy, good way to fight for a lot of us. So just a pebble of concern for that.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson. I'm a member here, also a member of the dedicated technical live stream team. I have two joys, and they're actually live stream team related. The first is 2 individuals came in yesterday. Have you noticed, is the sound a little better than last week? Yes. So I'd like to personally thank Seth Pratt and Al Santos for coming in and spending several hours yesterday, giving up their Saturday to help balance this for all of us. So thank you to you all for them. And the second joy is that the live stream team, actually all of us, will be out of town next week with our families, helping to celebrate the holiday. So while the live stream will not be broadcast next week, we will have audio in the sanctuary, and we'll return the following week. Thank you all.
All those joys and sorrows still too tender to escape the folds of our hearts. Let us keep one another in our thoughts for the coming week.
Many years ago, when I was an impressionable high schooler, there were but a few things that really captured my mental rather than merely hormonal attention. First and foremost was a love of pop music. This was something I'd carried with me from a small town called Newton, Kansas, to northern New Jersey. When I say pop music, I mean mostly what got played on the top 40 radio station and what my siblings liked and purchased as records, which was mostly rock music, although I was brought up with significant dose of Motown soul as well. I was born in 1958, and thus was just old enough to have some idea of what was going on in 1964 with guitar combos on The Ed Sullivan Show, when Beatlemania screamed its presence on TV. A few years later, when I was let loose on my own in a store, I'd stop at the local 5 and Dime on Main Street and go through their racks of 7-inch singles. They always had top 40 singles listed and available. I absorbed those top 40 lists with their artists and their movement up and down, just as I memorized baseball statistics for a while. Even in that Kansas trading post, 30 miles from Wichita, we could pull in a top 40 station and, importantly, also an FM station that played album tracks in the late 60s and early 70s. I absorbed everything on the radio that I could, and what I could afford to purchase, I listened to intently and repeatedly. I'd buy the occasional single for $1. Less often, I'd buy a whole album. Those would sell for about $5. I couldn't buy everything I wanted to hear, and of course, it was down to the luck of the draw what I'd hear on the radio. In 1972, when we moved to New Jersey, there was a lot more to hear on the radio. Between the 2 album rock stations and the oldies stations and a couple of top 40 AM stations. Of course, I couldn't own it all, but starting in early 1973, I could afford to buy every issue of Rolling Stone. I'd buy a copy on the day it appeared at the corner newsstand, and I'd read it cover to cover. I was so wrapped in my attention that when Rolling Stone published paperback compilations of record reviews and interviews from earlier years, including 1970 and 1971, I bought them and I read just about every page. And I'll admit I wasn't that discriminating. I fell prey to the appeal of my share of pretty lame bands now considered classic rock. Among the heavily hyped by Rolling Stone critics was one band, the Kinks, appearing in those reviews. Now, before I came across them in print, I was only vaguely aware of the Kinks' existence. I might have heard a song or two of theirs on AM radio back in Kansas, and like most folks, I had heard Lola. That remarkable single reached number 6 in the US. It also happened to be a very uplifting love song about a trans woman, but that fascinating aspect is perhaps another sermon for another day. The point here is in the early 70s, I hadn't heard much of the Kinks beyond a few hits. But these printed Rolling Stone reviews of the Kinks' recorded material and interviews with the Kinks' band leader, Ray Davies, certainly piqued my curiosity. Now, for those who don't know, Ray Davies was the Kinks' primary singer and songwriter, but his younger brother, Dave Davies, was the original founder of the band, as well as its brilliant lead guitarist. I was pretty sure, based on all those raves, that the band's music must be worth a deeper listen. I dimly recalled those aforementioned earliest hits, which you might hear on the oldies stations. Those first hits beginning in 1964 were competing with those of the Beatles during what was called the British Invasion. The British Invasion included the Dave Clark Five, the Animals, the Rolling Stones, and after the Kinks, the Who. The Who were among the first to acknowledge a deep debt to the Kinks, by the way, as do a bunch of other musicians who've come along since, like Ozzy Osbourne and Van Halen, Ace Frehley, The Pretenders, Blur, and Oasis, and many others. As for the Kinks' first hits, some of you might know the biggest and most influential ones. There were the so-called power chord hits that are often cited as proto-metal or proto-punk. There were also the razor-sharp, snarky commentaries that expertly skewered the British upper classes like well-respected man and dedicated follower of fashion. That's what you'd expect from young men who grew up in a working-class London neighborhood. But it turned out, according to Rolling Stone magazine, that there was a whole world of material beyond the earlier hits that came later. I was pretty sure it'd be great, but was it worth shelling out $5 for an album to find out? Bargain bins to the rescue! See, on Friday evenings, my family, at this point, mom, dad, kid sister, and me, we'd typically have a very modest dinner out. Afterward, we'd stop at a local discount store to shop for about an hour afterwards. This store was kind of a proto-version of Marshall's. maybe a smaller version of Kmart, and along with the clothing and other merchandise, the store had what record buyers, including myself, used to refer to as the cutout bin. A show of hands, does anyone here remember cutout albums? We got a few, okay. That was what we called LPs that didn't sell in their original release, cutouts. They were returned by the record stores to the record company for credit. They'd have a corner of the cardboard album cover mutilated by a drill or a saw blade so they could be clearly identified as such. These vinyl albums were usually resold, typically at lower-tier retail outlets, for well under half price. When I was shopping in 1974, they were usually just $1.99. I think you know what I stumbled upon. The Motherlode. 4 Kinks albums happened to be available at this reduced price in the bins. All 4 of them were packed with tracks that I found compelling, to the point where I would hear a tune like This Time Tomorrow, or Get Back in the Line, or 20th Century Man, or I'm Not Like Everybody Else, or Sweet Lady Genevieve, and I'd say, perhaps after the 4th time through, how is it that everybody doesn't know this music? It's unfair. This stuff is brilliant. To which I now say to my impressionable 16-year-old self, welcome to the cult. You are now officially a weirdo who feels he has to evangelize on behalf of some professional musicians who, turns out, do have a record contract and who are actually doing quite well for themselves. They have plenty of gigs lined up, and they will mount an incredible comeback here in the U.S., but go out and be their unpaid publicist and listen to other weird stuff that doesn't sell well. There's a good lad. Now, in fairness to myself, it wasn't just the Kinks that had set me on this path towards seeking out musical acts with what seemed like just a cult following that weren't getting any radio airplay. A high school pal of mine during sophomore year was a big Frank Zappa fan. And I'd managed to accumulate a ridiculous number of Frank's albums because I was convinced this was worthwhile stuff. Kinda. I mean, if you know Zappa, you know the guy is quite deliberately difficult, as often as not. Zappa more or less forced you to accept that nothing he recorded would ever really unfold conventionally. Forget verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus. If you got that, one of those components would probably detour into some freeform jazz or modern classical piece before returning, if it returned, and with Frank, man, you just never knew. The Kinks, though, these guys, the band, they wrote amazing songs that you could sing or hum at least. These tracks were hook-laden gems that got burned into your brain. So naturally, I bought a guitar and an amp, I found friends, and we had a high school rock band. Oh, wait, no, I didn't. Who was going to pay for all that? Did I mention I was reduced to scouring the bargain bins? I wasn't made of money. No, instead of buying the pricey hardware and banging out chords with friends in a basement just yet, I was going to continue my high school years wandering forth in search of new, interesting stuff. Glam rock was just happening, and that meant Bowie, Roxy Music, Eno, Lou Reed, and T-Rex ascendant. That music was plenty weird, and it attracted high school friends that I made who listened to these acts' mid-'70s output with me. So it was in the summer of 1976 when a friend and I were old enough to legally venture into a seedy bar with a PA and a small stage and a jukebox on the then impoverished Lower East Side of New York. Spurred on by a glowing write-up in the Village Voice by a fellow named James Walcott, I had heard about an unsigned band, still a trio at the time, called Talking Heads. And hence we knew that they were playing regularly at CBGB. That legendary club was just starting to attract a lot of curiosity seekers like us. Talking Heads were not like anything I'd ever heard. They were just off-kilter enough while keeping just enough hooks to hook me. There was something lovably nerdy and brittle about how David, Tina, and Chris presented themselves in their button-down shirts and their nice clean jeans, or even slacks, and workmanlike, serviceable musical hardware. This was about the farthest thing from overwrought, preening, stupid, sexist, macho hard rockers as one could get. Was it punk? In 76 and 77, we were still collectively deciding what that word even meant. I think we still are. Yeah, after that experience, it would turn out that there would be, playing at that same Lower East Side joint, any number of acts that went on to become legendary, but who didn't yet have major record contracts like Television or Blondie, or those who did, but who just weren't getting airplay yet, like the Ramones, or newcomers like the Damned or the Police. I somehow found the time to check out live acts there several times a week while attending college full-time, working part-time to pay for tuition, and this live music habit. I was also earning enough to be able to buy a cheap guitar, a very loud amp, and a fuzzbox. This happened a year after walking into CBGB, and I formed a pretty terrible basement band with some friends who were also learning how to play and sing. But enthusiasm mattered more than competence, and by the second summer we were trying to gig out, we weren't that terrible. We covered the Kinks, starting with a pretty dreadful version of All Day and All the Night. Years later, though, our band got a lot better, and we got more ambitious, playing solid versions of Where Have All the Good Times Gone and a heartbreakingly beautiful anthem called Shangri-La. Did anyone listening really take note of the band we were covering? Probably not in real time, but maybe someone heard it and put two and two together if he or she happened upon the records whence they came some time later. Because, of course, the Kinks didn't just languish in the bargain bin where I found them in 1974. They'd been knocked down before. The Kinks endured a 3-year ban from touring in the U.S. from beginning in 1965. When they were allowed to return to the States in 1969, their American record label unleashed a publicity campaign. You want to guess what they called it? It was called God Save the Kinks. And they played the rock halls like Fillmore East and West. They toured the States incessantly. They had a top 10 hit with the aforementioned Lola before releasing 3 rock albums that didn't quite find an audience between 1973 and 75. But they did get back on track commercially, beginning the following year with songs like Sleepwalker and Low Budget and Superman and Do It Again, and their last genuine hit, Come Dancing, which, like Lola, managed to hit number 6 in the U.S. charts. And that's going back to, yikes, 1983. If I had to hazard a guess, that'd be sometime before at least a third of you and maybe even half of you in front of me were even born. Me, I didn't love their later stuff so much, but I was, as one says, happy for them. And it was good, clean fun to see Ray Davies starring in a very funny video for the single Come Dancing on MTV. I could just end this sermon here and say, for every wacky, weird thing any of you decided was special, you're blessed. Go in peace and enjoy the week. But as promised, I must cover the connection from the Kinks fandom to my current belief system as a Unitarian Universalist. Worldwide, there are maybe 800,000 people who self-identify as Unitarian Universalist. We've been around as a denomination since 1961, but for real, since the time of this nation's founding, we've been either Unitarian or Universalist. And in all that time, when at first great things membership-wise for Unitarians were predicted by no less an individual than Thomas Jefferson, who believed that we were going to rock this world once people had a chance to hear our message, where do we stand in the religious top 40? Yeah, not very high. Doing a search of worldwide faiths, I was bedazzled by certain groups claiming many scores of millions, and yet we're down here seemingly at the bottom of the dog pile, yelping for attention with our miserable 800,000 worldwide. Does it matter? Is bigger better? Or are we proud of our cult band status? Well, what do you think I thought back in 2004 when I told my wife, our daughter's getting asked in preschool, where do you go to church? And I'd actually had a very pleasant church experience as a kid myself, so maybe we should try a church here in Georgia to our liking. And honey, I took the Belief.net test and found out I'm something like 99% Unitarian Universalist, which beats out 96% Quaker and 95% United Church of Christ. I said something like that. I thought, these are probably my people. They're not just liberals, but fellow weirdos, octagonal pegs, not willing to be forced into square or round holes. So I might go so far to say UU is the cutout bin of religious believers. You might get it, you might not. It's okay if you don't. But if you're willing to spend an amount of time in a UU service that is remarkably similar to how long one might expect a long playing record to last, 45 minutes, say, an hour at the outside, that'd be a double album's length, I guess. If you can hang with us and maybe hear something that ought to be a hit but isn't, welcome to the cutout bin, the cult band. Heck, let's embrace it since some religious extremists have deemed us UUs as such anyway. The cult. So, did God save the Kinks? There's no question in my mind. God most certainly did.
In an effort to fulfill and further the vision and mission of this congregation, we ask that our members and friends share some of their time, treasure, and talents. With this, we will now take the offering. You may also use the Give Now option in the Breeze app.
Tikkun olam, tikkun olam, repair the world. Tikkun olam, tikkun olam, tikkun olam, repair the world. Tikkun olam, tikkun olam, tikkun olam, repair the world. Tikkun olam, repair the world. Each of us together, nation by nation. Though we are different, we are much the same. Working together, tikkun olam, tikkun olam, repair the world. Each of us together, nation by nation. Though we are different, we are much the same. Working together, tikkun olam. Hunger and homelessness, we can make a difference. Political oppression, we can make a difference. Injustice, hatred, we can make a difference. Racial obsession, we can make a difference. Tikkun olam, repair the world. Each of us together, nation by nation. Though we are different, we are much the same. Working together, tikkun olam. With comfort and healing, we can make a difference. When the crowd will cease, we can make a difference. With kindness and forgiveness, we can make a difference. When humbly pray for peace, we can make a difference. Tikkun olam, repair the world. Each of us together, nation by nation. Though we are different, we are much the same. Working together, tikkun olam. Working together, tikkun olam.
Come on, hand it over. Oh, that's not what I'm supposed to say. I'm supposed to say we accept this offering generously given by our members and friends to further the vision and mission of our congregation. May we use it wisely. Please rise as you are able and join us in singing hymn 1017, Building a New Way, in the softback hymnal.
We will sing verse 1 and 4.
The following words are from Raymond Douglas Davis. Here's wishing you the bluest sky, hoping something better comes tomorrow, hoping all the verses rhyme and the very best of choruses too. To follow all your doubt and sadness, I know that better things are on the way. Go in peace and enjoy the week. Oh. Wait, you can't leave because it doesn't count if we don't extinguish the chalice. Apparently, we're a little out of order. Welcome to the bargain bin, folks. Someone going to extinguish the flame? I think I know the words. The flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. I'm still wishing you the bluest sky. Go in peace and enjoy the week.